The moment Emily Hart stepped off the cold metal train, she felt every eye on the platform turn toward her. Clearwater Valley was a town where strangers did not arrive unless they had a purpose, and this quiet woman in a dark blue dress carried a purpose heavy enough to weigh down her shoulders. But she was not the only one observing. A tall man stepped out from the shadows near the station wall, boots shining, coat well-fitted, shoulders wide as a barn door. His gray eyes fixed on her with the sharpness of a man who made quick choices and never questioned them. Emily knew right away this was Jacob Reed, the rancher, who had called her here with a telegram so short and chilly it might have been cut from rock. But as he walked toward her, something else stirred in the air. Not warmth, no, something stronger, something risky. She did not know it yet, but nothing in her life would stay the same after this moment. Jacob stopped in front of her, noticing her simple dress, her tidy hair, her anxious hands holding her travel bag. Miss Hart. It was not a welcome, it was a check, as if she were an item he had requested. Mr. Reed, she replied quietly. He lifted her trunk with one powerful move and guided her toward a black carriage that shone in the gray November light. Inside, red leather seats surrounded her like comfort she was not sure she earned. "The ranch is 12 miles from town," Jacob said as the carriage moved forward. "We will talk about the agreement when we get there." He spoke the word agreement like a banker signing papers, not a man meeting the woman who would share his home or his bed. Emily pressed her hands together tightly. She had traveled from Iowa with one small hope, to become a mother. She knew Jacob wanted the same, though his reasons came from family name, not affection. Still, she told herself she could accept that. She had accepted much worse. As the carriage shook over the frozen earth, she watched the man across from her. He appeared younger than his serious letters had suggested, maybe 35, maybe less. His gray eyes seldom stopped scanning, as if he was always judging, figuring, choosing. "Have you visited Montana Territory before?" he asked suddenly. "No, sir." "You will find it tough, cold, truthful." He spoke the last word as if it held importance. Emily nodded. "I am not scared of difficult places." His eyes moved to her for the first time. Something like interest broke through the hard shield of his face. The ranch appeared over the next hill, large white buildings, tall barns, pens full of horses, cowboys working like parts of a smooth-running machine. It was more than property. It was a kingdom, and Jacob governed it like a ruler. Inside the big house, Emily was taken upstairs by Martha Collins, the strict housekeeper, who looked at her as if she were a lost animal that had wandered in. "This room is yours," Martha said. "Mr. Reed has high expectations. Best not to let him down." Emily touched the silk bed cover, feeling overwhelmed. No man had ever prepared a room for her. She had slept in boarding houses and tiny rented rooms, never in a place like this. But it also reminded her she was here for a reason, to give Jacob Reed the child he wanted, nothing else. When the dinner bell rang at 7, she came down the stairs in a rich green dress Jacob had ordered for her. His eyes moved over her, stopping on her face for one long moment. "The dress looks good on you," he said. It was the nearest thing to praise she had heard from him. They ate quietly at a long wooden table until Jacob set down his fork and said, "Now we discuss the conditions." He led her into his study, a room filled with maps, books, and the weight of many years of choices. He opened a record book and started listing what he expected, the way another man might list his livestock numbers. Her responsibility was to become pregnant and give birth to his child. She would follow the doctor's orders without argument. She would not take part in ranch matters. She would get a monthly payment. She would not write letters to any men. Their closeness would start once the doctor said she was healthy enough for pregnancy. Emily kept her expression steady, even as her heart beat hard. She had agreed to this. She had picked this. But hearing it said out loud made it feel colder than she had thought. "What happens after the child is born?" she asked. "You will raise the child," Jacob answered plainly. "And you?" she whispered. "Will you marry someone someday?" "No." His voice grew firm. "I had a wife. She left." The air shifted. Emily saw the darkness behind his eyes, the pain he carried like an old wound. She asked nothing more, but she understood him better in that moment. He was not cold by nature. He was cold because warmth had hurt him. "I accept your conditions," she said quietly. Jacob closed the record book and looked at her with a steady gaze. "Good. Dr. Morrison will check you tomorrow. Then we start." She stood to leave, her pulse beating like a captured bird. But just as she reached the door, his voice stopped her. "Miss Hart." She turned. "Welcome to Clearwater Valley Ranch." It was not warm, it was not gentle, but it was something that made her breath catch as she realized her life had just entered a new chapter, one she could no longer leave behind. The next morning arrived pale and cold, the kind of Montana winter light that made everything seem sharper than it was. Emily dressed carefully, her hands shaking as she buttoned her new dress. She reminded herself she had chosen this path. She had stepped onto that train. She had accepted Jacob's conditions. But choice did not stop her heart from racing when Jacob appeared in the hallway. "Dr. Morrison is waiting," he said. No good morning, no gentle smile. Just calm, firm control. Emily followed him to the study where the doctor, a respected older man, checked her with professional care, while Martha stood nearby with the stiff stance of a guard. When Dr. Morrison finished, he closed his bag. "She is in excellent health," he said. "No problems." Jacob nodded once. "Good. That will be all." Emily swallowed hard. She knew what came next, but Jacob surprised her. He did not touch her. He did not take her upstairs. He did not even look at her the way she expected. Instead, he said, "We will talk tonight." And with that, he walked out into the cold morning air to join his cowboys. All day, Emily moved through the house like a woman in a new world. She visited the library, finding shelves of books that revealed more about Jacob's thoughts than he ever would say. He read about ranch life. He read poetry. He read about people. He read about building, losing, and building again. A man who felt nothing would not read like that. When the sun was low, Emily stood in the garden, coat pulled tight around her shoulders, watching the cowboys train horses in the pen. The sky turned orange and gold, and she wondered if Jacob ever noticed beauty, or if he only counted land and animals. "You should come inside," a calm voice said behind her. Jacob stood in the doorway, snow on his coat, hair messy from the wind, eyes softer than she had ever seen. "It is cold," he added. She followed him into the warm house, the air filled with the smell of stew and fresh bread. Dinner was quiet, but not uneasy. Jacob watched her more than he ate, and Emily felt her heart stir in ways she did not expect from a man who spoke so little. When Martha cleared the table, Jacob stood. "Walk with me," he said. She followed him to the back hallway, where moonlight came through tall windows. He stopped there, hands in his pockets, jaw tight as if he fought something inside. "I am not a man who does things halfway," he said at last. "Not with my land, not with my work, and not with this." "This," she whispered. "Our agreement?" He stepped closer, his voice lower now, warmer. "I told you this was a business matter. I meant it. But life," he breathed out slowly, "life does not always follow rules." Her heart beat hard. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. Jacob looked at her with eyes no longer guarded by distance or control. "I do not want you to think what happens between us is just mechanical or duty." The words seemed hard for him, as if he was not used to sharing them. "I want respect," she said quietly. "Kindness, some feeling that I am more than a means to an heir." "You are," he said quickly, surprising her. "You are more than that." Silence grew between them like something delicate and new. Then Emily stepped closer, stopping just inches away. "What happened to you?" she whispered. "Why do you fear anything that feels like care?" His jaw moved. His eyes looked away. Emily thought he might turn cold again, but he did not. "My wife left," he said finally, "took her things and her promises and walked out the door. She said I was too serious, too steady. too much the wrong kind of man. That must have hurt, Emily said gently. Enough to make me build walls so high no one could climb them again. She reached up, her fingers touching the sleeve of his coat. Some walls, she said softly, are not meant to stand forever. Her touch held him still for a moment. Neither spoke. Then he moved even closer, his breath warm near her face, voice almost a whisper. You make it hard, he murmured. Hard to do what? To keep distance, to keep this simple. She felt her heartbeat in her throat. His closeness tightened her chest, but not with fear, with something deeper, something she had once believed she would never feel. Jacob, she whispered, I am not asking for romance. He tilted his head, eyes intense on hers. Then what are you asking for? She gathered her strength. Honesty, respect, and a chance at something true for both of us. He did not reply at first. Instead, he raised his hand, touching a curl near her cheek with a care that took her breath. His touch was warm, gentle, almost respectful. I do not know if I can give what you want, he said. And I do not need you to be perfect, she whispered, just honest. His fingers stopped. His eyes dropped to her lips for one open moment before he stepped back, as if struggling with himself. We will take this slowly, he said, voice rough. No hurry, no demands. We discover it together. And for the first time since arriving at Clearwater Valley Ranch, Emily felt something inside her relax. A small, delicate hope warmed her heart. Maybe this agreement was turning into something more. Maybe Jacob Reed was not the cold man he acted to be. Maybe he had more to offer than land, money, and rules. Maybe, just maybe, he had a heart he did not know how to share, but was trying to anyway. Winter arrived fully over Clearwater Valley Ranch, covering the land in deep snow that softened the world, but increased the loneliness inside a house as big as Jacob Reed's. Yet somehow, Emily did not feel alone anymore. The change between her and Jacob had been quiet, gentle, and steady, like a fire starting slowly but burning warmly. He knocked on her door each morning before breakfast, not from duty but from something kinder. He asked her on short rides when the weather permitted, showing her parts of the ranch he had never shown anyone else. And most surprising, he listened to her, really listened. One evening, after a late snowstorm kept everyone inside, Emily found Jacob in the library, staring at a book he was not reading. The fire threw golden light on his face, softening the strong lines. She paused in the doorway until he looked up. "Come in," he said quietly. "Sit with me." She sat near him by the fire. For a long moment, they simply shared the warmth, the soft sound of logs filling the space between them. "How are you settling in?" Jacob finally asked. Emily turned toward him. "Better than I expected." He watched her carefully. And this life, this house, this agreement. She heard the unspoken question. "And me?" She chose truth. "I am learning you are not who you pretend to be." He tensed. "What do I pretend to be?" "A man without softness," she said gently, "without hope, without worries, without fear." He looked away. "Softness gets a man hurt." "So does closing out the world," she whispered. A long quiet settled between them before Jacob rubbed his jaw in frustration. "You make me question every wall I built," he said, "and I do not know what to do with that." She smiled gently. "Maybe you do not have to do anything. Maybe letting things happen is enough." But Jacob Reed was not a man who let things happen. He made choices. He took charge. He built kingdoms with his own hands. And that night, something inside him changed again. "Emily," he said, voice rough, "walk with me." Confused, she followed him through the hallway and up the stairs to the second floor. He stopped outside his bedroom door, the door she had never entered since arriving. He did not touch her. He did not push her. He simply said, "I do not want this room to stand apart from the rest of my life anymore." He opened the door slowly. She stepped inside. The room was warm, strong, and completely Jacob. Dark wood, deep green materials, a tall bed, the faint smell of leather and cedar. Emily's heart beat fast, not from fear, but from understanding. "I do not want to begin this part of our life because of a contract," Jacob said. "I want to begin it because we choose to." Her breath caught. "Do you still want this?" he asked softly. Emily took his hand. "Yes." What followed was not the rough need she had feared, nor the cold task she had worried about. It was gentle, slow, filled with feeling, a closeness built on trust instead of duty. A night that felt like the real start of something neither had dared to name. Afterward, they lay under warm blankets, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her as if he could not let her go. "Things are changing," Jacob whispered into her hair. "I know," she said, "and they frightened me." "I know," she repeated, her fingers drawing small circles on his chest. "But that does not make them wrong." A quiet fell over them until Jacob finally said, "Emily, I have been thinking." "About what?" "About us, about something lasting." She lifted her head. "Jacob." He met her eyes, his gray gaze full of openness she never thought she would see. "I want a wife, not a contract, not an agreement, a true partner." Her breath stopped. "And I want that partner to be you." Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. Jacob sat up quickly. "If you do not want—" "I do," she whispered. The relief on his face made her chest hurt. She wiped her eyes and added, "But I have conditions." His eyebrow lifted. "Of course you do." "First, a real wedding, a celebration, the town invited, not a private deal." He nodded at once. "Done." "Second, I want to share the work, the records, the ranch choices. I want to be part of your world, not just watching from the side." His eyes softened. "You already are." "And third," she touched his face, "never hide from me again." A long quiet passed before he placed his hand over hers. No more hiding. Their wedding came in spring. The small church was full of friends, ranch workers, and curious townspeople. Emily walked down the aisle in a cream lace gown while Jacob waited for her, eyes bright with something that no longer needed to hide. 6 months later, riding across the bright Montana fields with Jacob beside her and their child growing inside her, Emily felt a calm she had never known. "What are you thinking about?" Jacob asked, taking her hand. "That I almost missed all of this," she whispered. He raised her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "We have a lifetime ahead to make up for it." Ahead of them, Clearwater Valley Ranch spread wide under the endless sky. A future built not on an agreement, but on a love that had taken root in the toughest of places and grown strong enough to last. Because sometimes the life you never planned becomes the life you were meant to have.